Hey everybody, welcome to another Games Tavern Happy Hour. And as you can see here, I have Reed with me this fine evening.
Hey, hey, man, it's good to see you.
Likewise, yeah, it's been a while. I took last week out. Uh,
Yeah. Well, you had some
yeah,
life things that you had to deal with, so
but
uh,
glad to have you on the show.
oh,
So it's
excited to be here.
one of the things that with missing the news show is there's a pile of news to dig into. So let's go ahead and
Oh
get
my
into
gosh,
this. So I
yeah,
think probably we were just discussing this. I think probably the biggest single piece of news of the past 2 weeks or so is the new Dragon Plus magazine.
yeah. I know we've been talking a little bit about that on the Discord, so it's been kind of excited to see all the latest cool stuff in there.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff in there. What in there are you most excited about? Because there's some stuff I know I have my list, but
Honestly, the newest thing that always gets me is which cool maps are they showing in
yeah,
every episode, every issue. So I was checking out the maps, to be honest.
yeah, and there are some pretty cool practical ones.
Yeah.
Not just like art maps, which we'll get to in a second, but there are actually some pretty cool battle maps there that whether or not you're using them for the specific scenario that they recommend, or you just need something to drop on a table or roll 20 or any of that kind of stuff. It's all there, so it's free, it's convenient, and I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's always great to have resources that help you get your game, that much further along. And I tell you, when they point out some of the best resources out there consistently,
Yeah.
with every episode, I mean issue. I keep saying episode. With every issue, um, it's just been a real great resource for me.
Yeah, that's. I know that in there, there's usually a lot of. For any of our viewers out there who haven't actually read Dragon Magazine or Dragon Plus now, it's definitely worth digging into. Just going by the table of contents alone it gives you a whole bunch of great ideas of what's going on there. They have behind the scenes kind of stuff about, ooh, this is one of our artists or one of our in-house writers. Here's how they picture this particular thing. This time they're talking about it's imagining the ampersand is their thing, but it's Wiley Beckert, whose name I probably just butchered, who is a Magic the Gathering artist, but is doing the two alternative art covers that they made up. One of them actually is getting selected for Tasha's, so that's coming
Uh,
out in a couple months. And they
what's the
talk.
full name of that book?
It's Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, so it
Yeah,
should be really interesting.
yeah.
So they talk about her art style, go through some of that. They go over some
Mhm.
stuff that they're looking to hopefully get out soon. Talk about upcoming events, and then of course what everybody chucks in for rules and maps. So it's actually a really good time, well worth the free money that you're going to spend on it.
Plus,
Uh,
there's always they're telling you about the cool new products that are
yeah,
coming out, the cool new miniatures, or whatever else they've got coming out, and then sometimes they have other games mentioned in there too.
they do. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Wizards of the Coast being the new owners or new being the owners of Dungeons and Dragons is huge now because now they can
Hmm.
actually have more. It's not just TSR and the things Gary Gygax wants to do. So it's like, hey,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can do some cross pollination, which I think we're seeing some hints of. We'll talk more about that in towards the end of all this. But one of in this you get a whole bunch of hints of stuff coming out. My
Hmm.
favorite thing in Plus this time is actually the map of Castle Ravenloft. Remember?
Oh, the old school map, isn't it?
No, no, not even.
No?
This is
Oh,
okay.
this is the new one that what's his name did up of it, right?
Yeah,
The
it's
3D map. Yeah,
yeah, it's the same art style. It's Jason Thompson
yeah.
who did it, but it's the same art style for the Barber of Silvery Moon
Hmm.
for
Hmm.
that map. And there's absolutely no way I can get this on screen because it's a scroll. You have to crawl through the entire thing. It would be turn the magazine sideways and it's a fold out.
Yeah, he always does great stuff.
It is fantastic. So if you haven't checked out the Dragon magazine, I highly recommend checking it out. We'll go ahead and drop a link there for anybody who's in the chat. It's a really cool magazine, and some other stuff that is in there, besides just the really cool map, is there's some more concept art for my favorite upcoming book, Icewind Dale. A
Hmm.
whole bunch of really cool stuff in there. You're looking forward to Icewind Dale, right, Reed?
Very much so. If for no other reason than getting a great deal more background lore and cartography on that region of Neverwinter, as well as some more very specific development of certain NPCs and of course, all the cool new stuff that they throw in there with creatures and magic items, stuff like that too.
Environment mechanics are really going to be supposed to get revolutionized here, which should be really interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how they're playing with that.
Yeah, I've spent more than a few years freezing my tail off in some of the coldest environments out there, and I look forward to seeing how they created game mechanics to really make sure you know how much it sucks to be in the cold sometimes.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that. They have they're talking about like new, like not necessarily downtime activities, but other non-adventuring things you can do. I think there's rules for actually playing sports games.
Yeah,
Troll
Goat
ball or
Ball.
something like that. Yeah, something
Goat Ball.
that might be it.
Yeah, it's a series of platforms that you have to jump from platform to platform. They have a stuffed goat hide, and I guess from what happens, the Goliaths play this game where they jump from platform to platform, and they have to pass it successfully to 3 different people on 3 or 4 different platforms at some point to successfully win the game.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then try to imagine players playing against Goliaths on their own turf.
Yeah,
Jumping platforms. It's going to be insane.
Goliaths are a weird like blind spot in my D&D understanding. I've never actually dug into them or understand what they are.
They're kind of like in the family of giants. So they're not as big as like a hill giant, but they're huge. They're like 8 foot tall, 400 pounds or more. Okay. And if you're going to play a barbarian class and you're going to play a race, there's almost no better choice outside of a half orc to play a barbarian at an important time. Yeah, they're just beasts. And they live in very cold, high environments. They speak giant. They're awesome.
Okay, cool. I'll have to check that out. I know the next barbarian I make is going to be a turtle, just because
why not?
I love that concept. But speaking of games you can play around the gaming table, there's also some in the new edition of Dragon Plus. There's a couple races, and let's see, where is that? Yeah, so there's a couple races in there. One of them is, they're calling it the Great Knucklehead Rally.
Rumble.
Yeah, Owlbear Run. Yeah,
Owlbear Run,
which is a basically they had the logic of this is there's some rich noble somewhere who wants to have a rich race. And as opposed to a chariot race pulled by horses and all sorts of great things you can expect there, you actually have it getting pulled by owlbears. So that's fun, right?
Yeah, I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, what could go possibly wrong? Yeah, that's
completely wild, semi-magical beasts. Yeah.
I think it'll go really well.
Crack that whip, see where it gets you.
And they were saying it's like domesticated owlbears or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But all of the rules for that and a map are in the actual Dragon magazine here. And then there's also a couple other cool things that you definitely need to check out. My personal favorite is a cut out and keep snowy owlbear, because I
knew that was going to be your favorite.
But you can print it out, and it comes, it's like a back of the cereal box kind of thing. When you were, sitting around the cereal table.
You can never get enough cutout snowy owlbears.
And yeah, so there's some really cool stuff in there. We don't want to go too long on that, but they're probably most importantly overall for serious stuff is they talk about the some of the panels that are coming up with the D&D Celebration 2020. So that's coming up next weekend, I believe.
Yeah, I think some of us are talking about possibly playing in some of the games.
Yeah, I need to sign up for one, try and get in there, because it looks fun.
Yeah. It's all virtual this year. That's the important thing to remember, is that D&D Celebration 2020 is a virtual convention event. They've got quite a few gaming opportunities. They can play on Zoom, they play on Discord, they play on Roll20 and some other things too. There's even a Google Hangouts one as well. So, and there's I didn't see an upper limit really in terms of numbers of them available, and they're just all over the place all the time.
And it's the coolest thing I think is it's actually it's coinciding with the release of Icewind Dale. So it's all the gaming is Icewind Dale themed. I believe it's all from a previous convention or things that were going to be coming out during this convention season. And then since that all kind of got scrapped, like, all right, we'll just push it all together and have things happening around the 10 towns. So should be cool.
Yeah, yeah. Plus there's some epic adventures on Sunday with the Knucklehead Rally is just one of them, and there's 2 other days of gaming on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, like the epic is really where it's at. There's some cool opportunities in there, especially if you're an Adventurers League player.
Yeah, we've been kicking around the idea of doing a little bit of Adventurers League play, and we might have to figure that out.
Yeah, well, we kind of have to if we're going to play in this weekend's deal. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I'm most excited about for though is a panel or a couple panels that are going to be having people like Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford getting up there and just talking about whatever they want to talk about. So that's hearing it from the the creative leads. Yeah, I will hear whatever they want to say.
Oh yeah, and they'll probably be playing in some of this stuff too. We'll see examples of some of the stuff they do as well. Both of which do some very entertaining voices when they talk about what they do. So.
Yeah, I caught some of them at the at one of the recent PAX events. I caught, I believe it was Jeremy Crawford DMing, and it was fun.
Oh yeah.
So I believe that pretty much covers Dragon Plus. Keep going, Dragon Magazine, because old school. So one of the things that I'm actually really excited about that's coming out, it's a new product. It's announced by Dungeons and Dragons, is a new DM screen.
Yeah.
They haven't. I don't know if you've used the stock DM screen, right?
I've used almost every DM screen they've ever made.
Okay.
I have them all.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the current stock one, which actually I have right next to me because I still need to use it to check up on stuff.
Do you want the one with the red dragon on it?
Yeah, the one with the red dragon on it right there.
I love that for just general play. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it has some really cool. The art is great, but some of the problems I have is like, all right, well, I don't need to know, spell cones and spell shapes and all that. There's a lot of real estate there that's tied up for that. So,
well, when that one, try to remember when that came out, that was for people who are new to 5e. So if you're a new DM, you really can't beat it.
Oh, yeah.
And then if you're even an experienced DM, sometimes it's good to go back and take a look at some of that stuff. It's all in the player's handbook, everything that's in there.
Absolutely.
But, just understanding what the difference between the various different states, what does blindness really mean? What does incapacitated really mean? And then they've got some great pictures illustrating what that really looks like too, so you don't forget.
Yeah, I've seen some really good ones that do that kind of thing. It's not my ideal one because I think some of them are a little wonky or a little more obscure and whatnot, or just don't fit the kind of adventure play I'm looking for. So having additional DM screens themed DM screens, I think is a cool investment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do the same thing right now. I switch out DM screens with when I'm streaming with you guys. You guys don't realize it, but there's different DM screens that I have.
I'm picturing
and when you guys are
between you and your camera. And
what's that?
I'm picturing you just putting the DM screen up between you and like your screen and your camera, and just still rolling behind it, protecting your role.
Typically actually on the ground like this, but you can't see it because of the way the camera's placed. But because of the remote thing, and you guys saw it when we were doing the stuff in the studio. I had it behind the wood screen that we had there and stuff like that too. So that was all really cool. But I have the one for Out of the Abyss for when we're in the Thunderdark, for example.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And then I have the one for Waterdeep Dragon Heist for when we're in cities and urban environments. And there's a lot of great stuff on all of those screens that either spark or evoke different thoughts and activities, and sometimes they're great encounter builders for beforehand. I actually look through them to check for stuff before we go.
In that vein, we're getting another themed DM screen. This one is for in the wild. It's their wilderness kit.
Yeah, I'm betting it's going to be kind of based on the timing and stuff. I would wager it's going to be a little more bent towards Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Yeah, that seems logical because with them doing the revamp or more focus on the actual environment rules, giving a DM reminders like, hey, here's the rules you haven't used in 4 years. I think that'll help out. But there are actually some pretty cool stuff in there besides just the screen. There's some
there always
cards
is.
And it's so good.
Didn't they come up with some cards or something in a wet dry race kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's condition cards, which I'm a sucker for. Any game that sells them, I have them. I don't know if it's around here, but I have just
The
stacks of
Essentials
cards.
kit. The Essentials kit came with condition cards too, and I think
They did.
so did the. I can't remember if the starter kit
Um,
did as well.
it did not, no. But I ended up going out and buying like monster cards and spell cards and all that, just because cards are a nice tangible way to be able to play with that. Here, it has additional cards for conditions, initiatives, and environmental effects. So if you have Frostbite, you'll now have a card that says Frostbite. And it
That's a new
has,
condition, by the way.
or I don't know if that's going to be there, but that's just, if you have,
Huh?
yeah, all of that. But then there's also a hex map, so we might be getting some old school hex crawling in.
Ooh, that'll be hot.
So that's check that out. It is coming out in November. With looks like it's actually the 17th, so it's gonna be right along the release of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So it should be available in both local game stores and on Amazon. Yes, you are absolutely right, R. Klein. Gotta love the hex maps. Hex crawl.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's coming out. Speaking of, and we hinted at this a bit about new things or new things that they've announced. And I don't think either of us are the ideal people to be speaking about this because I don't play Magic the Gathering. Do you?
I do, but not as diehard. Let me tell you who's the diehard player for Magic the Gathering. That would be Prim on our show,
Yeah.
on Whiskey Magic and Destruction. She knows her Magic, and so does Joe, by the way, also.
Yeah. We'll have
Plays
to
Braum.
get them
They
talking
both know
about this.
Magic. Yeah, so much so that I'm going to spill a little bit. We're in discussions of doing some content based on Magic the Gathering.
Ooh.
So what is it you were going to talk about
Well,
in terms of Magic?
they've been
As
doing
if
a lot
I
of-
don't.
Yeah, you don't have my show notes, Reed. There has been a lot of crossovers between D&D and Magic the Gathering for 4 or 5 years now, with like Ravnica and Eberron. And
Theros. Eberron, not so much, but Theros.
Okay.
Theros, yeah.
Oh, I thought Eberron was. My bad. Yeah, so Ravnica and Theros are both D&D or Wizards of the Coast's other properties for Magic the Gathering. And so far, we haven't really seen it go the other way, where D&D stuff ends up in Magic the Gathering, except for I think 1 or 2 like joke cards. I think there was a Sword of Dungeons and of Dragons or something like that.
Yeah.
But now they're actually releasing in 2021. They're calling it the Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. It's a straight up D&D set for Magic the
Forgotten
Gathering.
Realms. Yeah.
And it's been a while since I've played Magic, but it looks to me like it's actually replacing the core set for 2021 because normally it gets released in the summer.
It is a complete episode of cards, essentially. It's not just a gimmicky thing. It's literally a complete issue of cards, or whatever it is they call it. So a series, I think. So they are doing an entire series on it. So it's just as much as like Ixalan or Theros or any of the other ones that they've just recently released. It's coming, and it's going to be a big deal. I have a feeling a lot of Magic players are a lot of D&D players are going to jump on it just to have it.
It's got me interested again to jump in on it. I've seen a couple tutorials for like taking Magic cards and cutting them to make tokens and stuff. So it's like, okay, I could see even if they don't start playing, just pick up a whole bunch of Magic cards and start making tokens. But I might be willing to dabble back into Magic again if this is cool.
I look forward to seeing how. So one of the things that's happened with some of the Magic universes, like Guilds of Ravnica and some of the Theros stuff, is they took Magic the Gathering cards and turned them into D&D spells. And then there was an article right after Guilds of Ravnica came out that it was pretty interesting. Like, how do you take Magic cards and turn them into D&D spells, right? So we're now going to see the official D&D spells get turned into Magic cards, theoretically. So we'll see kind of what that looks like going the other way, which might give us kind of some insight as to ways we can take these existing Magic cards and turn them into spells for D&D and make it fun.
Yeah, when we get more data points on that, we can actually start doing more conversions. So that's
yeah,
really
or
cool.
we'll just break everything, which often happens. So, yeah.
Yeah, and they also mentioned, and this is just a personal thing that I really like. I loved the Innistrad set. It's basically Ravenloft or Barovia, but it's just a spooky vampires and werewolf set. There's another one of those coming out after the D&D set drops. So there's some really cool stuff coming out for Magic the Gathering, and that's about all I know about Magic the Gathering. I'm sure there's a lot more we could talk about, but
Well, I'm sure that we'll see how it's going to impact mechanics or meta
Yeah.
and stuff like that too. It'll be interesting to see if people will play with all only Forgotten Realms decks and see what they come up with,
Oh
and how
yeah, I
competitive
didn't even
they'll
think
be
about
as
that.
well.
Yeah,
I think that'll be a good conversation to have with Joe and Prem on the show and see
yeah.
how that goes.
We'll have to figure out a way to get them on.
Hmm.
But that's moving on then. We have we all use D&D Beyond. They had a dev update recently. Not a whole lot of huge stuff coming up. There's a lot of minor bug fixes. The thing I'm most excited about is one of their work in progress things is the
Hmm.
random encounter generator. Just that, if they balance it appropriately, I think that'll be a really key tool to be able to just populate random
Hit the button
encounters.
and go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That will be, especially for you. You're big on the random encounter charts and stuff in dungeons and stuff like that
Yeah,
too.
I like
Far more
ordering
than me.
monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, dungeons are supposed to be deadly. So if the crowd or if the players are sitting there, arguing for 15 minutes in a hallway, well, the bugbear is going to wander through and be like, "What are you doing here?"
Time for lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Some other stuff that they're working on, of course, Rime of the Frost Maiden, all of that is coming out, available for not download, but for use on the 15th. Tasha's Cauldron and everything on November 17th. And they're also working on the Player Tools app, putting the digital dice in your phone. That's cool. I think
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That'll be
that's
easier.
the app started out kind of problematic, not really worth its buck or its the effort to get it going. But as they keep putting new stuff onto it, it's rapidly becoming worthwhile. I could see it being a thing that maybe not ideally I would want to still have a paper sheet in front of me, but if you just have to do something on the go, yeah, that's really good.
I can tell you with each iteration that player's app has been
Yeah,
tremendously improved. I would play with it now. I would play D&D on that on my phone.
yeah, okay, cool,
No problem. No questions asked. I would do it right now.
awesome.
Yeah.
And then the final thing I'm excited about is the ability to digitally roll for ability scores. They're saying they're doing it in 46, drop the lowest, which is fun.
Mhm.
If you want to spin up a character that way, I really like that. But it does create some really wildly unbalanced parties. But just the fact that they're giving us that nod, I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think the regular app could do that, create random characters for you and have all that done. But I think it's going to be interesting to see ability score rolling equivalents as opposed to
Yeah,
just a complete random character drop. So that should be a nice addition for those who want that.
yeah, I think it'll be just anytime that they make more rules that are available, more functional in their apps. That just is
Mhm.
only a good thing. And that's
Absolutely.
everything coming out of D&D Beyond. Not a whole lot of huge news coming out of there. Uh, Moving on. Oh, we have the free RPG Day stuff that came out from Paizo. I know we mainly do Dungeons and Dragons, but Starfinder and Pathfinder still have a nice warm space in my heart.
Hmm.
Basically, if you go to their website, you can download the PDFs for both Skitter Home for Starfinder and Little Trouble in Big Absalom for free.
I
So if
love
you
that
play,
name.
yeah, it's so good. If you play either of those games or are interested in either system, just go ahead, check them out, and download them if you want. Those are the free RPG Day uh, modules that they released, and they're silly and wacky, and they're joke modules. Really, it's a good way to get someone in and play the system, and also just a fun evening of not taking things too serious and worrying about saving the world. I think one of them you play as kobolds, and the other one you play as weird space salamanders. So
What could possibly go wrong with space salamanders?
I do have problems with Skittermanders, but that's a topic for a different discussion. And then finally, for the news, we're going to talk about our Kickstarter roundup. It's we only have two
Ooh.
things this time, but one of them actually both of them I'm super excited about. So everybody, I believe, on the channel should at this point know that I like old school revival games. My
Yeah.
I don't think I've made a secret about it, but my game of choice is Dungeon Crawl Classics right there. I really like how that plays. It's super deadly. It's as Gygax wanted, and it's not. Yeah, it's not the most forgiving thing, and
Yeah.
we play it periodically here. But if you want to play something more true to 1981's Dungeons and Dragons, Basic and Advanced Edition, the Old School Essentials is the most faithful port out there. Basically, they took all of the rules that are printed in in the original edition there, and gave it to a good publisher. I'm like, hey, you know what you're doing. Please make this a legible thing that people can actually use.
So they smoothed out the writing for it. Is that what you're saying? Because I had those boxes, and it helped if you had someone else who already kind of got shown by somebody else, even though the rules are there.
Yeah, it's
written in a way that somebody could pick it up and actually play a game without help from an outsider.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who before 5th edition actually learned to play Dungeons and Dragons without oral tradition, and they're like, oh, and you also need to buy the book just to say you have it. You really had to learn from somebody else. Old School Essentials does not have that problem. It's because it's actually published really, really well. This is not their first rodeo with publishing Old School Essentials. This is the ones that they have published currently are they are the basic and expert editions of Dungeons and Dragons. So the basic and expert box that came out for get people up to speed. Advanced Fantasy is AD&D. So this is first edition, what we recognize as first edition Dungeons and Dragons is now available with a really cool book. It's not too expensive to buy in. I think it's $70, gets you 2 hardback tomes, and it's a Kickstarter, so it'll be delivering in March, I believe, is what they're saying on this one. Okay. But it's a really cool way to do it. If anybody out there is interested in doing old school stuff and hasn't already jumped on the DCC bandwagon, check it out, or just hang on to the streams or join up with our Discord, and I'll run something for us because I'm super excited when that drops in almost a year.
So just to be clear, they didn't take like first edition D&D basic AD&D and turn it into 5th edition. They literally kept it as first edition AD&D, and they've just made it easier to read, understand, and play that version of the rules. Is that what I understand?
Yeah. So
THAC0 is back to hit armor class 0. THAC0.
THAC0. Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious, that'll be interesting to see.
But yes, they basically took the original AD&D books, including some of the supplements, and gave them to a copy editor. And like, hey, make this a thing that people would actually pay money for. That aren't just neckbeards that have nostalgia on it. It should be much, much better. Everything I've heard about their previous stuff is it's really, really good, and I'm excited to get my hands on this. That's
exciting to see. I can't wait.
And that is, if you're going to Kickstarter and you don't want to follow the link, that's Old School Essentials : Advanced Fantasy. Real easy to find. And there is some pretty cool art in there too. And then another thing I'm super excited about. What's your favorite dungeon delver or dungeon monster there, Reed?
Ooh, dungeon monster. I would have to say that it's for comedic value, kobolds are some of the best choices out there, and then for pure shock and horror, it's a cross between hobgoblins and drow.
Drow. Okay. Well, I'm glad you're reading the show notes because I have a Mimics Kickstarter for you.
Oh, that's even. Oh well, you can't beat Mimics because I have done those with you and against you. I've had it both ways with you when it comes to Mimics.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, you've been there.
Yeah. So you're pretty malicious when it comes to Mimics, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, they're not fun to let them get the drop on you. So this is a Kickstarter campaign. It is releasing STL files, so you do have to have a 3D printer or a friend who has a 3D printer, which I think everybody now at least has a friend.
We get to print Mimics?
Yeah. So this is a lot. It's not just the Mimic where it's coming out. It's the angry treasure chest. It gives you, I believe it's 30 miniatures for 15 Mimics. One of the, there's one pile of the miniatures are classified as scatter terrain, and it's a crate or pile of crates, and there's a barrel or a pile of barrels or a door, and then when the players haplessly brush against it, then you take the miniature out and you swap it out for the angry barrel monster or the door that has the head of a gorilla for some reason.
So the minute you set up a 3D dungeon that we all get to play in, I'm already just going to scratch every door, every shelf. Anything. Oh yeah, if there's furniture in there, if there's doors in there, oh yeah, it's getting tore up. I don't trust you.
So this is one of my favorite types of of miniatures that you can get. There was the what was it? The Traveler's Caravan, I believe, is one of the ones that Nolzor's pushed out. That had it was like an old school wagon caravan with like the glass windows and the roof and all that, and it had a campsite. And
Yeah, it was like a Vistani caravan.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
But they had like barrels and crates and stuff. But then if you go to the actual just the Nolzor's Marvelous Miniatures line, you could pick mimics that matched the barrels and crates and treasure chests from that. And it's like, that's fantastic. I have all of them and I love it so much. Just because that's a really fun surprise.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have Richard saying, did you finish the adventure? No, they are still stabbing every inanimate object in the first room.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a problem with mimics.
Yeah.
Especially
mimics on a ship, especially, because then you can't run.
Mimics with Brooklyn accents and.
Hey! I just play the mimic as they want to be played.
No, that's fair. That's fair. This is just that's fair.
Yeah.
So out there, I believe that's basically all of the news that we have. If you were watching, guys, what pieces of news did you like the most? Or which ones do you think that we missed? Read of what we covered, because we still have a couple minutes before the break. The ones we covered, which one are you most excited to hear about or see coming up, or anything that's coming out of Dragon?
I'm real excited about the D&D celebration.
Okay.
That is absolutely just, I mean, it's something that's needed in the community to really bring everybody together again, because the convention's just shut down this year. It's just been an exciting opportunity to see everything. And then the Rime of the Frost Maiden as a book to center it around, it really opens up the Great White North portion of the environment, which it's touched on a little bit in Storm King's Thunder, if you're talking about 5th edition books. Yeah. And stuff like that, but they really open it up. So unless you go back into the 4th and 3rd edition lore and some of the stuff that happened before, and some of the Dritz books and stuff like that, it's kind of hard to keep up with exactly what's there. This will really open it up and add some depth that we just didn't have before. I think there's some stuff going on with boats as well, so we might see some stuff that further evolves that stuff with seafaring. And I'm just going to plug it a little bit here. D&D Beyond has kind of done some stuff to kind of get you an adventure path that gets you to that area. So,
right, I've been seeing a couple of their updates. Those are like just tidbits that they're pushing out. They seem useful.
Yeah, some of their articles, they do different chained articles on some stuff as things come out. I think you'll find some value there too.
Excellent. Yeah, I think the thing I'm most interested in seeing how it plays out is actually going to be the Magic the Gathering stuff. I don't play Magic, but just that is a huge step for them to make, and I'm excited to see how it's going to, how they're actually going to make that work. And if we can actually get these two fan bases together and get them to sit down at the table, have a good time together.
Absolutely, I expect that we'll see a great deal with the Magic side of that. And I'm kind of excited about it too, so much so that we're talking about content about it. So hopefully our shows are going to be interesting when that comes on. So
yeah, I think it should be good. But that's we're going to go ahead and take a quick break here, guys, just to readjust the cameras and get Jacob on. If you're not,
the interview.
Yeah, I completely having such a good time talking about this. But we'll go ahead and pause for a brief second here, guys. We'll be back in about 10 minutes because I got to play with some cameras, so I'm not going to sell it short. And
definitely worth it for the interview.
It should be good. Jacob's he's our DM for the heist, and he's doing a whole bunch of other great stuff. So just hang tight, and we will have a good time. So we'll be back in 10 minutes, everybody.
Take care. Be back in a bit.
There we go. I'm back on. Can we get a quick mic check from out there?
A mic check, a 1, 2.
Okay, it's looking like it's working.
Yeah, Jacob in the house.
So if you
What up,
hadn't
everybody?
noticed, everybody, we have Jacob today.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
Oh, man, all that energy, so little time.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating there, Jacob. I'm not gonna lie.
Sorry. Hold on. Let me turn myself down just a second. Hello, everyone.
Yeah, nah, that'll last all of 5 seconds.
Yeah, I'm easily excitable. What can you do?
It works. It works. So, for anybody who isn't watching, who isn't familiar with you, can you give us like a 20-second blurb about who you are, what you do, and why you're showing up on our weird, nerdy program?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jacob. Duval King Jacob on the internet, Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff. So give you, I guess, a little bit of background. So I've been playing D&D. Actually, I'm actually pretty young in the grand scheme of things from that perspective. Like really just been playing it as an obsession, official obsession for the past like three or 4 years. And before that, like way back when, the 1999s and the 2000s, fell in love with a beautiful game called Neverwinter Nights, which, if folks are not familiar, is based on, I believe, 3.5 D&D, could be 3.
If it was late 90s, it was 3, yeah.
Yeah, 3. And then so there's obviously the Icewind Dales, and then if you go earlier, Baldur's Gate, which I think is based off of either 2nd or 1st, or AD&D, I should say. And so I was obsessed with those, but like didn't recognize like that was, based off of or written based off of like this large conglomerate insanity that is the Forgotten Realms. Then I played D&D one time in 8th grade and absolutely hated it, which is crazy considering where we're at right now. But as I found out now, I just had like a really bad dungeon master. So, but then just to throw him under the bus. Sorry, Brandon, you were terrible, but I love you.
Wow.
So, right. So then after that, fast forward about 15, 20 years, my friend Sean runs a Disney-based Pathfinder campaign, and I love Disney. And so
Like in
next thing
Disney Universe, or?
yeah, so
Okay.
so essentially he kind of spun it on to the like from an adventure perspective. Essentially, think about it like, all right, all the good guys are bad, all the bad guys are good, and then the TLDR of it is that all of the Disney princesses are actually like a witch's coven, which is pretty awesome. And which when you think about it, it's like that actually makes a lot of sense. And then that then escalated into a incredible battle with Maleficent, and then a dragon fight with her. I will say a quick story on that one because I love this story so much. Is
Okay.
playing this this fighter, and we had this big dumb barbarian, and we'd been trying to out of game, in game, do the fastball special a la Colossus and Wolverine if you're a Marvel Comics fan. And that was actually the way that the campaign ended. We've been trying to do it for a year, and we finally got it done to kill Maleficent and end the campaign. It was perfect.
Yeah.
So long story longer. But so then eventually, so that campaign ended, and I was just like, no, I can't stop. I have to keep going. And then, of course, this is all when Critical Role came out, and I became obsessed with that. And then my buddy was like, well, dude, I've been running 2 games of this over the course every week for a year, and I'm tired. I'm just like, but you can't be. You're the only one you're only dungeon master. It's like, well, you could be a dungeon master. And I'm like, no.
Yes, that's how it starts.
Yep. So I was like, no, I can't do that. About a month later, I was running a Taldori campaign.
Oh, wow.
That's still going now 3 years later. So that's kind of how I got started.
A big thank you to Campfire Quest for hosting. We really
Oh, yeah.
appreciate you, Campfire Quest.
Raiders
Thanks a lot.
too. Fantastic. Welcome, everybody.
Oh yeah, welcome to all the new folks coming in.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
So that explanation kind of blew through most of my first half questions there.
Beautiful.
So yeah, where do we go from here? So you mentioned that you've
Let me ask it.
yeah,
So-
you go. You start with this one, Reed.
Or Jacob, what came first, the nerd or the gamer?
Oh wow, what a great question. Let's see. I feel like yes is the answer to that question. I feel like that was both. It was just like this natural like fit together. Like One of my earliest memories was a bit like is like having the original Nintendo and playing, review Super Mario Brothers on the Nintendo. And I've always had a controller or a laptop or a PC or something in my hand ever since. It only recently really became like tabletop related, but because I'm a huge RPG nut. I've got one thing that people don't know is that I'm covered in tattoos, and there are I think 15 of them, and I think 12 of them are video game related.
Oh wow!
And then a couple of comic related, and eventually I'm going to get a tattoo of the character that I played in that Pathfinder game. It was actually a pretty insane moment for me, because what I realized later on, because one of those things that I think is really, really important, total segue, is that I think role playing things out from a therapy perspective is really, I think, really amazing. And so I didn't really realize I was dealing with some really deep seated kind of hero complex / imposter syndrome situations. And so I actually dealt with that by playing this character for a year, and then he stopped pretending to be a hero, and then eventually became someone very legendary. And so it's one of those things. I haven't played that character in almost not 5 years. That's not a couple of years anyway. And and I'm sure you guys have probably experienced this as well. It's what is that character up to? I think about him all the time.
Yeah.
Which outside of tabletop RPG sounds absolutely insane, but
what's my
that's
Skyrim
piece
character?
of you.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Eating cheese wheels mainly. That's obviously what he's up to.
There's nothing, and that's cool too. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. That answered my question right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Mac?
Yeah.
Back to you, Mac.
I got this.
I mean, what we could do is I could kind of tell you how I kind of got into the online variations of this craziness.
That is one of the questions we have up there. Let's do this. We just email you the show notes hey, listen.
So as my at-home games started to become a little bit more not recognized, but people knew that they were happening. And it snowballs the same way for everyone, right? I want to play, and then you've got a 400-person waiting list, and you're just I'll get to you in 2028. So hang tight. But the thing that was interesting is that that waiting list ended up being similarly hey, you know what, you could run a game, and if Jacob can run it, Eddie can run it, or Steam can run it, and things like that. So it ended up kind of snowballing really well. But the one thing that I felt was missing at that point was there are more people to tell stories with, and I'm as you can probably tell, a pretty mega extrovert, so I had to put this energy somewhere, and so it just kind of had a natural, kind of seemed like a natural fit, and so I got introduced to Matty, who runs his Twitch, So Matty Games, and his website, sonoword.com, #ad. And so we did a quick little GM chats episode, and I thought I could provide some really interesting context because typically the obligatory GM has been doing this for 25,000 years, and I was I've only been doing this for 2, and it'd be cool to give a different perspective, and that kind of dovetailed into join this community and this game and this one shot and stuff like that. And so my buddy Jordan, who's one of the admins at Thread Raiders, could talk to Jordan. Jordan is the bomb diggity, and and that's what's been really special is she's actually become like my sister, and we only know each other for less than a year, but it feels like we've known each other for 20. And Reed was kind of looking for somebody to run the heist, and she mentioned me, and that's history.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we'll get into the details of that in a minute, I think.
So you've I just want to make sure I have the timeline right here. So your Disney Pathfinder game ended about 4 or 5 years ago.
Actually, yeah, I got the timeline off. It ended right around 2016, 2017 around there. Yeah.
So it started about 4 or 5 years ago.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then you just made the jump the next month to start DMing. Wow.
Yep. Because I was just like, I can't stop. Like, there's just this is like it's weird because like I don't think I expected to like it as much. Because I only really jumped on board because like the hook was Disney, right?
Yeah.
And then one of the things you guys were talking about Pathfinder a little earlier, and I liked a lot of the things with Pathfinder. The one thing I didn't like that was a big like red X for me was if I move, I lose almost everything. Like because I was like a level like I don't know, 10 or 11 fighter with like these 2 flame cookeries that if I didn't move, I could attack 4 times in a round, and then as soon as I move, I can only do 1. Nope, I don't think so. And then someone was like, hey, there's a system that's really popular where you can move and do 2 attacks sometimes. And I'm just like, oh, please tell me more. So
That works. Is Pathfinder the only other RPG tabletop that you've played, or?
So I'm about to embark on a Blades in the Dark campaign as a player, and which in here in a couple weeks, and I'll be in a Vampire the Masquerade one shot here pretty soon too. So those are kind of 2 things to check off the old bucket list. So
Yeah,
I
both
think
those are on mine.
I definitely.
Both those are on my
Check
list.
it.
I've heard great things about them, so have fun.
Yeah.
I think we'll be doing Blades in the Dark here shortly as well. I think you can expect to see some short stints of that coming up here in the future.
Excellent.
Nice. And I think
Yeah.
what's one thing that's really that I was like absolutely because I'm obsessed with 5e, but World of Darkness has absolutely always been like this is what I want to do next when I find time, and then like I look at the week that is like 5e heavy, and I'm just like, all right, can't find time. Great.
Yeah.
So when you started out in video games, for example, right, and you started out in video game RPGs,
Yep.
and then you transitioned to tabletop. For you, what was the biggest thing you noticed the difference between because in the video game it's just you and you're playing with your entire party, and now you've done it as a player as well as a DM. What's changed for you in terms of that?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. Because it's not necessarily a natural transition over, right? These are 2 very parallel universes. But I think, I really fell in love with the ability to create something. Not even like of my own, but like, I think a lot of early DMs fall into that kind of trap that like, it's your story and you're telling it, which is not true. It's quite the opposite. As a matter of fact, like it's very collaborative and you're all telling the story that you're creating together, right? And so that's something that I fell immediately in love with. And so, and the side effect of that that I realized almost involuntarily from coming out of that was the fact that, oh man, like these friendships that I had have been enriched by this, which sounds silly because we go out to the bars all the time and hang out and drink and laugh and have a good time, but now we're doing it. These 5 people consistently in this world that we're creating. That's really powerful.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense. So why you're still doing the video game thing? I'm assuming, right?
Oh hell yeah!
Okay. How do you divvy up your time on which one you're gonna be? Or are you gonna get the next, Battle Axe game, or are you gonna be like, instead I'm gonna just go ahead and go over here and pick up the next, D&D book, or branch out to other fantasy systems?
Great time management.
Okay.
But I'm very much like I'm a very impulse person, so it's just like, what am I doing now today?
Gotcha.
So don't get me wrong, there are games like the Final Fantasies and Persona. If you're not familiar, is another Japanese RPG, and but of course there's still that like natural kind of come back around. When Baldur's Gate 3 comes out, don't at me for like 3 months. Like I will not be available.
Yeah, that's coming out soon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It feels like it's like I remember when it got announced, I was like, oh my god, that's never coming out. Like it's gonna be forever, and it's getting closer and closer. And so yeah, there's this like I will say right now, man, my poor PlayStation 4. Like it's just like, bro, like did you forget about me? I haven't played it since when I beat FS7 Remake, which was like October or November.
Oh wow.
but but I also have like my Nintendo Switch, and so I play things like Dragon Quest on that, and so that's a 300 million hour game. So like there's plenty of places, especially since like before the world ended, I traveled a lot for my real job, for my day job, if you will. And so my Nintendo Switch got a lot of time on playing some things.
Excellent. So you said that you haven't played any other other major RPGs besides that one Pathfinder campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So you're pretty. I'm assuming you're pretty good with the 5e rules, right?
Yep.
And you're a pretty just did a little bit of internet stalking on you a little bit earlier today. It's like you're all over the place there.
Jack is doing some stalking, classic, amazing stalking.
If I could travel, I'd be outside your window peering through your blinds.
Hey,
what do you like
over there?
So that's what your boxes look like. Okay.
Oh yeah, no one's wearing pants anymore.
This dice
Anyway,
right here.
so my question for you is, the internet and all that, because we do a lot of this stuff on the internet now, has a lot of very passionate RPG like debates and topics and stuff like that. House rules versus rules as written. What do you feel about alignment? How do you, what's the only correct way to be doing attribute generation methods? Yeah, we're getting ugly. This is going to get bad.
Where do you land on
the hot button issues out there?
Can't we ask him about like his ex-girlfriends or something less controversial?
No. This is what the people are tuning in for.
It is less controversial, isn't it? It's super funny. Like, I really like value rule of cool. I'm very much give it a whirl.
Okay.
Can I do this? That may not work, but it might work. So that's what we roll freaking dice for, yo. Let's do it. I think there's gotta be some sort of baseline. Like if it doesn't make sense to me, then I'll probably be like, I don't know, like give me a little bit more detail of what you're trying to do, and then maybe we'll figure out some sort of compromise. If not, then I'll just be like, and then let's move on. But
keep things moving.
It's a classic thing. Like if the rules are getting in the way of fun, then the rule goes away 150% of the time. I've definitely been in situations where there's been like rah talk at the table. You can't do that. It's like, hi, that's what I'm here for. You don't have to do that.
Yeah, don't correct each
other. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, look, you're a level 5 character? Well, guess what? There's a meteoswarm that's going to hit you. Oh, oops. You shouldn't have rules lawyered.
I've given players aneurysms before. Been like, hey, sorry, man. You called me out on this, so I need you to roll 4d6. All right, do that again.
Yeah.
All right,
do that again. Anna did that to me on the heist. I was a player, and I said, hey, wait a minute, this works. And she goes, he's the DM now.
It's true.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, you're right. He's the DM. I'm staying away from that.
Like, DMs, we're fallible, so it's like, oh, no, it doesn't work that way. It's like, oh, well, the rule says this. Now we've changed it. Okay, cool. Move on with our lives. All right, that's good to hear.
It's funny, too, because, like, the first campaign that I ran, like, my DM senpai was in it. So, like, that was already, like, intimidating enough, because I was just like, is that right? Is that right? But now I'm just like, fuck it, do it. I don't care. Like, let's see what happens. And so that kind of leads, that's why, like, let's just see what happens. Because honestly, like I think the flip side of it is I think a lot of people misunderstand that like a failure is bad. Failure is awesome. Are you kidding me? Failure is so good. Like maybe as much fun as I'm having running the heist, my favorite moment of the heist has nothing. We'll get into it in a minute, but just to put a little seed somewhere for us to go back to has absolutely nothing to do with the heist. Absolutely nothing to do with it.
Okay, interesting. All right. Well, before we get into the heist, last question here is: what other like creative outlets or hobbies do you have? Because you clearly have mountains of energy, which is probably illegal. Like, let's be frank here. Like, we're all sitting around like, oh.
He likes computers.
So what else do you do to direct this energy creatively?
You can find me on Tinder. No. So there's a couple of different things. So I yell a lot of things. I yell a lot.
He yells something in particular, if I recall
Yeah,
correctly. We might as well just bring that out right now.
it's, what is it? It's like a
It's,
5-letter word. I say
Yeah,
it
you're
a
kind of
lot.
known for it, actually.
Dude,
I knew it was coming.
like that.
So-
I think you maxed out the mics actually, because that just chirped out.
Yeah.
Well, so what's fun about that is that that's actually, I didn't expect it to become like my online identity, but it's because it's just like the county name of Jacksonville is really where it starts, but also like it's kind of it took on this next level like about 15-20 years ago in Jacksonville, like for as like a like town cry, if you will. And so there are times I've done this before where I was this is before the world ended, #COVID. I was literally on a street downtown by myself. All four corners are completely empty. And I yelled it, and literally like just a cacophony of loudness just hit me in the face, because people just kind of opened opened the windows and just yelled it back at me, because it's just a good time. And then
So this is like a county, like, just hype thing. It's like it's like the thing that everybody does in the county is yell Duval at the top of their lungs.
exactly. And everyone, there's some haters. Don't get me wrong, there's some haters about it, but yeah, because Jacksonville is already huge enough, and then Duval County is around that, plus some extra counties. Fun fact: it's the largest city by landmass, excluding like one city in Alaska, and so we don't care about them, so we win.
It's Alaska.
So yeah, right. It's so far away. Like we gotta get through Canada and stuff.
It's all the way in the ocean in that tiny box.
Frozen solid.
Yeah, so it doesn't even count. Sorry, Alaska folks. But yeah, but I will say, like, just to give you a really weird example of how insane it can get. So a couple of years ago, I was in London for a Jaguar game. They play in London every year, and we're at Buckingham Palace, and it's, as you can imagine, being England, it is so quiet. I remember I looked up and I went, because I read that if the flag is up, that means that the Queen is in. So I said, I wonder if I could yell Duval so loud that the Queen will hear me. I don't know why I had to clap like that, but
no, so it's good.
So there's the gate right in front of me, a bunch of guards and stuff, and then I walk up the steps and I look around, and I just as loud as I can. The thing that I forgot though was that because I'm not the only person from Jacksonville that's here for this game, so it's returned to me, something like 400-fold. And then I just ran because I was like, I'm gonna get arrested.
I started a riot.
Yep. So I was like, my inner 10-year-old kind of checked that box, and so now I've done it on top of the Empire State Building, in front of the Statue of Liberty. I've done a few different really cool places. So it's become like a bucket list thing for me now at this point.
Okay, interesting. That's yeah, I got nothing else. Interesting. That's
yeah. So just to give you some output, because again, like I gotta like it gotta go out there, so to speak. Otherwise, I'll spontaneously combust. I truly feel like. I will say, as like to bring it back around to tabletop RPGs, I do not know how truthfully how my mental health would be without online tabletop RPGs and cool friends to play with, because the idea is you stay home, and I'm an extrovert. I literally can't do that. It hurts me. It's like you're casting vicious mockery on me every hour of the day, over and over and over.
Stay in your house and not talk to people.
Hold on. Natural 20.
Okay,
there we go.
Yeah. You do not fall for the suggestion spell.
It's
you
because I'm
will...
playing D&D later. So. But yeah, that's just a small example. I've got a few kind of podcasty type stuff. It's funny, we were joking about ex-girlfriends. It's
Please no.
Was expecting this to go here, but sure.
Hold on, I promise we're not going to get there. But my friend Denise was like, because we have this super nerd friend group, and she's like, we need to get you guys girlfriends. So her idea, truth be told, was to start a podcast about like just our friend group. So it's if you want to check it out, hashtag ad. It's called. So I went on this date. You can find it everywhere podcasts are found. So that's just another little thing to fully answer your question. Another little output thing that I do.
No, that is the kind of answer I wasn't expecting, but what I wanted. So
Yeah, it makes you real, bro. We like
Yeah.
that.
yeah, fantastic.
That is that is absolutely an on-brand thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's shift. Oh, go ahead, Reed.
I'm just curious. So, like, because you're talking about your dating life on podcasts, does that work well for you, or does that create problems later
Yeah,
on down the line?
do women like that?
Great
You
question.
break up with them and then you start dishing on this podcast.
So
like,
really fun. To be continued. Ask
Yeah.
me on in a couple months and I'll tell you. Because
okay.
we only just released the first suite of episodes, and I'm on episodes 1 through 3. And 3 just went up like recently, and we only just started releasing these a couple of about like a week or 2 ago. So
Awesome.
who knows what's going to happen from that perspective?
Okay.
All right, excellent.
All right. So transition.
Yeah, we're
Go
going to
ahead.
just shift gears and get back onto what's the topic
Sure.
of the day? Dungeons and Dragons. So,
Sure.
so you touched on it briefly, but just how did you end up getting hooked up with the heist? Because that's, what do you got? How'd you get here? Why are you here?
What is it that you say you'll do here, Sam? So Reed hit me up on Discord and was just like, hey, Jordan hit me up and thought you'd be a really cool dude to DM this heist thing that I want to do, and so I was just like, who are you? Hi, cool, and like I'm very much like this is again very like. As you can probably tell, I'm a very personality-driven person, and but like no idea is awful. Like, and even if I was like, because literally my very first reaction to it was, "Who are you? That sounds cool. Never done that before. Let's do it." Like just like that. Bing, 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 bing.
It was a really good conversation initially. I think the excitement level wasn't just because you're an extrovert, but because you actually liked the concept of what we were doing.
Yeah, because like it was one of those things where like it's on like because running a heist was on my kind of DMing bucket list anyway. 1, 2, hey, and like I remember thinking like because the first even before I ran like a year-long or now 2-3-year-long Tal'Dorei campaign, which for those unfamiliar, that's the first campaign's world or continent in Critical Role. But before that, I ran the Lost Mines of Foundelver, D&D starter set adventure, which I know people talk a little smack about it. I fucking love it. It is so good.
Yeah, I've never actually heard anybody
So
complain
good.
about it. It touches all the high points. There's a dungeon. There's dragons. There's goblins.
There's
What
caves.
you want. I've run it.
Everything is in there.
I've run it probably 8 times, and I never get tired of it. It's so fun. And so, but I always had trouble with the fact that like it starts out right in front of Neverwinter, and we never go in it. But what's funny is because typically like you like I forgot the actual note, the little grayscale thing like you read out to your players. I forgot the name of it. Like it's the thing you read out.
Grayscale, the call out box,
Yeah, exactly.
creation box.
Yeah, so yeah, something like that. So the thing you read out to start the adventure.
Right here.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm also running one right now.
Nice, that's awesome. So I'll never forget it. Like, so first session of like my DM career, if you will, and like but I was like starting it out like you started out in the wagon on the way to Fenderland or whatever, and I was like, that sucks. I don't like that. So let's start with like something like outside of the city or whatever, right? What I didn't really think about was like I was like I'm gonna start them, get them role playing, and then get them on the wagon and get them going. The problem is one of the players was like, let's go inside. And I was like, I have nothing for Neverwinter. 20 minutes into my first D&D session ever. Oh shit.
That went off the rails pretty quickly.
Yeah. So,
Welcome to Dungeon Master life, my friend.
Right, but I always eventually I was just like, yeah, that's what your apartment looks like in this shop, and eventually we got out of there and it was fine. But I remember being like, man, there's nothing in Neverwinter, and like really like settings wise, like that was my introduction into the Forgotten Realms, and I've never been able to go back there. And then, so as soon as Reed said Neverwinter, I was just like, we're done, dude.
Excellent. All right, that sounds like a solid enough way to get in.
Oh yeah. And it was. I will admit though, one of the things that was challenging for me was because I'm so used to just like because I haven't before this and then really not challenging in like a expert way, but like challenging in like, oh man, like is there things I need to change from like stylistically? The answer actually ends up being no here because everyone's so awesome. But it's just like, oh yeah, like I haven't played with like total strangers before, like ever, really. And so, and outside of a few like Thread Raiders games that were one shots for charity, like this was my first like not serious but like series that I'm running like on my own out of the gate, like let's go. So so now don't be wrong, and credit where credit's due, Reed has been like incredibly supportive and super awesome, and really set me up for success
that
here
Reed?
for sure. Yeah, that guy. I know.
Yeah, I we talked for a while before we even got started. It wasn't hard. You made it real easy to share and also build creatively some of the things that we were working on. I knew immediately after watching you on the one show that I only had to see him in one stream, and I was like, I want to talk to this guy. And
He's a lot.
yeah, and then when we started talking, the excitement level just kept growing as we kept bouncing ideas off each other just to kind of at least get it started. But then he had the challenge of keeping stuff in the dark for me as a player and him as a DM, but still getting information he needed to make sure that he had a fully fleshed out concept, and he did wonderful. He did great.
Yeah,
it's been wild.
You clearly have a very fleshed out world there. One of the problems I've always had is when trying to build a bottle campaign, 3 or even a one shot, is making sure that I'm going to stick within those confines. How does that sort of impact your planning for the campaign as a whole? What's your method there?
So there was the thing that we talked about initially was like there was a very clear 3-act structure. An intro, who are the party, how are they getting this information in which to be even interested in doing this heist, who's the mark, and why would they even want to do this together, right? Whether they knew each other or not or whatnot. So that part was actually really, really simple, and plus like the characters they have are absolutely batshit insane, and I love them very, very much.
Yes,
and so that was really easy to just play with anyway. The difficulty I think has been taking and knowing 1 is easy, 3 is I know what my end game is, and then how do I bring it down the middle? And so that was really the toughest part. And so, but also like the one thing that I didn't want to do, because like session 2 was intel and fact finding and things like that, but as I still wanted it to be a session that stood on its own. And so like I literally had a few things that I wanted to happen, or at least things that I could tug on. And this is just a tip for people out there that's really worked really well for me, is not necessarily being married to when something happens, but to have it and then plug it in when you feel it's appropriate.
Okay.
Like and like a great example is my favorite part about this entire thing so far was the end of last session with this halfling that snuck into their house. That I've had that in my back pocket the entire time. It was just a matter of when. And so it was just this perfect moment to just be like, all right, cool. Like, how hilarious would it be for there to be a situation where incredibly wrong place, incredibly wrong time, and then how do they react to it? And it was just like,
who was going to rob the rogues?
Right. And so like, because Reed was like, yeah, like they've got this house, and and I keep jokingly calling it their Airbnb, which I think is so funny to me. And I was just like, okay, so it's an empty house. All right, cool. Empty houses still have things in it. They don't know that it's because essentially they're squatting. It's really what's happening here. So what if someone's been marking that territory, if you will, and then they expected that house to be empty, and it definitely wasn't. and go. It's essentially what had happened there.
It went weird. It was a good time.
Man, did it
None
go?
of us knew it was coming, and our reaction was classic bad guy protagonist reaction.
Yeah, 100%. Because really, like, the entirety of the session so far has been prep, build, and then go execute. But like, so let's flip that. Like, but I mean, and then like, but the snowball fight, at the top of session 1, was kind of the opposite of that. Was just an independent event that happens to kind of like, this is happening regardless of this heist. Like, because the city is happening regardless of what they're doing. We're not the only people in the city, so I thought that was really, really, really important. And so, literally, just one day, it's literally in my notes as this, in all caps, snowball fight.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was an odd way to start. Just like watching, it's like, oh, I was not expecting it to open up with that. It was what, 5 minutes in, right?
Yeah.
Other people meet in a tavern. We met at a snowball fight.
Yeah. I wish, the one thing that I wish is that I kind of wish that we had because we had a session 0 before that, and which I think, and I'll admit, I was like, I don't get like clammy nervous. I get like nervous excitement because like again, it's D&D. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what they're gonna throw at me. Things like that. And so like, but like the way that the party makeup came out and the way that I was like, oh man, this is like, everyone has like really good chemistry with each other. And so like there were times where I'm just like, you guys go ahead. I'm not here. Just go ahead. Okay.
There was definitely some good improv going on.
Definitely. Like we even like, just from a prep perspective, I prepped kind of like a mini heist before the heist, and like I was just like, I don't even want to do that at all. Y'all do your thing. Like there's just no reason for it. Like it's this, what's happening now is so fun. Doing that does a disservice to everything else. So let's here's the world playing it,
Very cool. Yeah. What's your inspiration here? Like, what's your where do you go to when you want to get some more inspiration for the heist? What is your muse?
Oh, the heist in particular.
Yeah.
So like, there's the typical stuff, right? The the Italian Job and Heat and stuff like that. But one of my favorites is Inside Man. It's the one with Clive Owen and Denzel Washington. That's awesome. And really just like, there's a lot of places to play with this, and so like it very much came like, this is what a heist looks like, and I was like, cool. Now how do I make that mine? And then how do I twist things around and then not even just to make the heist like different, and not just like your typical like thing. What could happen around them? And so like, just getting to know who these NPCs are and how do I play with that was really, really important to me. But I also at the same time, like, given all those things, I really wanted to focus on like, what are the events that are happening in the city? Like, what's happening in Neverwinter? And that could be really interesting to just kind of play with. And so that was really, kind of taking all those things and kind of putting them into, a big, messy chamber. It was kind of the idea, because I'm not the type of person or DM to have like really like, this, not 3-act structure, but like very much like this, and this is written out and this is written out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't have anything. I try not to have too much planned, except for a few bullet points. These are the things that they know. These are the things the NPCs know. And then whether they choose to give it or not is up to them. I had no idea what the conversation was going to go, how the conversation was going to go when when a couple of the party met with the Mark last session. I had absolutely nothing really planned for that, but it went absolutely insane, and so I loved it. So it's just like, go and just like, and I think a lot of times just being in a position to be comfortable enough to just react, I think is really a place that I love to kind of live in, if you will.
Okay.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
inspiration at all.
There was one other pit. I think that in this particular case that was kind of important to discuss. Oh, Angry Nerd Girl, thank you for rating us with 12
Oh.
viewers today. Much
Hi.
appreciated.
Hey,
Uh, Thank you so much, Angry Nerd Girl. We appreciate you like you wouldn't believe. Thanks again. And to all of our new friends, our 10 or 12 new friends who just joined us, be sure and say hi in the chat. We'd love to meet you. Don't forget to follow us today. Okay. As I was saying, I think one of the things that we did structurally, that we did have some structure on that's a little different. Most heists, most rogues in a D&D party are like the all-around, skill guy, right? They do rogue stuff, and they're the guy who does that rogue stuff. When you do an all-rogue campaign based around a heist in particular, what you find that adds a little cinematic feel is each of the different rogues doesn't just have a different personality, but they also have different kind of specializations. And when we interview some of the other cast members, they'll talk about their specializations and stuff like that. And I think that by saying up front, like who's the second story person, who's the safe cracker, who's the forger, who's the face man who cons people, who's the person that can get you out, who's the killer, right? Of all those factors, by saying that up front and saying, hey, these are the kinds of specializations, we didn't say what the mission has to be like, but we gave the DM basically a platter that he could look at, say, these are the different specializations they talked about. Here's how I can build some things into that adventure that they each get an opportunity to shine in different parts of the show, right? And I think that is a unique situation for this particular 3-shot and a heist-focused stream in general, or adventure in general. So, yeah. I mean, you could do this with non-rogues. Your killer could be a fighter and stuff like that, or various. But in this particular case, because they're all rogues, there's some stuff there.
For sure. No, I'm glad you pointed that out because I kind of forgot.
But you did it naturally. I mean, you knew about it, and it just naturally flowed. So.
Right. And so, and I think that's honestly that works better. It's like, this is a third floor building. Guess that's my cue. Like, zoom in, like office, like.
Yeah.
Doesn't really work that well, right? So yeah.
So this touches on a point that I wanted to bring up. There's some very charismatic people on stream here that are all very, clearly have an idea where they want to go. How do you herd those cats? Like, how do you keep them focused on the mission and get them going where they want to go? How's this work out for you? What's your trick? Because they seem to be working.
With this group in particular, I don't think that I've had to, because it's very much like you literally got written a blank check. So the motivation is already like in the baseline, like right at the beginning. So that wasn't difficult. Typically, one thing that I'll do just as an aside, I think it's something I didn't used to be really good at, that I've gotten better at is like those things you want to iron out session 0. Like that's really, really important. And then if something does go different specifically from that perspective that you don't expect, then that's something that you can probably, not in game, but out of game, especially if it's like one particular player, then, hey man, like based off of this, when we created this character, this was the machinations that we were talking about and the motivations of this character. Let's talk about how that's changed, because clearly that's different. And then that gives you a way to re-engage that player, which then re-engages that character, and now you're back in it.
But you said you haven't had to do that. Everybody's sort of been not necessarily following the script, but everybody's been following the message and going.
No, I feel like in this game I feel so spoiled, because like I was truthfully feeling. We talked about imposter syndrome a little earlier, right? Because I was just like, what am I doing here? Like this is crazy. And then like it was like 2 minutes in, and I was just like, yeah, like we're rocking and rolling. Like everybody's like in. And Perfect. So like that's all I need, and because that to me gives me the green light to take the risks that I want to. You know what I mean? Because like there's definitely a possibility that in a different group that half an encounter is just weird or wonky or not fun, right? It was definitely as fun as it was, I think, because of the way that everyone reacted. Because that was the thing that was so special about it, was all 4 characters reacted incredibly different ways, in ways I did not anticipate. which is good because I don't want to know the ending, man. Like we're writing the ending together, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but I knew that I knew I wanted to end the session there, and so like because it just felt like an absolute ridiculous way to stop and then leading into the finale. And so, you know,
I'm glad that you just mentioned all that, but didn't give any spoilers whatsoever, and I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, you gotta go watch it, man.
He's got it. He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, and if you want to watch it, Games Tavern just dumped in the YouTube channel where the updated shows are actually posted after screening within 36 hours of showing usually. So you can watch episode 1 and episode 2 of The Heist on YouTube at any point in time. So
Excellent.
and
Now-
episode 3 I think is on the 24th.
Something like that.
Yeah,
Whatever that Saturday is.
Yeah.
I am like over the moon stoked. I have no idea how this is going to end at all. I went from like before session 1, I was just like, there's a couple of different ways. But in session 2,
Yeah, I kind of created an option at the end there.
he did. It was great.
Effectively. Yeah.
It was great, but it fit. Like it was perfect. Like I was just like, okay.
Oh look, a new diversion. Look what we did.
Yeah,
So-
of course. That was a fun surprise. Like that's the thing that makes D&D special is like is those like I can surprise you, you can surprise me, and at the end of the day we're all having a good time. Like that's the best stuff.
Yeah, that's that's one of the big draws of it. But before we get too late here, what are some of the highlights of the first 2 sessions? Because I've checked them out. I have my own list, but I'm very curious to see how that feels from your side of the camera or the DM screen there. And we'll ask Reed too, just because he's here.
Sure. So, I think from session 1, I'll just say Mordiville's entrance. Was
Yeah, that made mine.
The most ostentatious, obnoxious entrance
was-
ever.
it was something I thought
Oh yeah.
way too much about, but I was just like, but I thought it was important to like how do I introduce the antagonist? Like it's someone that that exists in the lore of Neverwinter, but like with my spin on it, and how do I make him utterly, absolutely ridiculous, but also like still respect him as an adversary from that perspective. And I thought that was a really fun thing to play with. So
It felt like a James Bond villain coming in. Like
Yeah.
the first time the ultimate big bad James Bond villain in the show, he's this guy, and you kind of it was a little bit humorous, but at the same time it was like that's what they would do, and it just seemed it just fit cinematically, I think.
it fit really well.
Or how about episode 2? What's your highlight there?
Well, I was gonna say as a second.
Okay.
I'll do 2 for each.
Sure, yeah. Well, I love it.
The second, absolutely. And I mentioned the snowball fight already, so I won't pick that one. But the Go Fish card game was an unexpected treat.
That was good.
And
Stefan did a great job on that.
dude, yeah, it was
Leading that one.
too much. Got any beholders?
Yeah.
So that was great. You want to go over your one before I go into 2?
Yeah, I mean the Go Fish or Go Lich, was it you guys?
Go Lich,
that and
yeah.
the snowball fight were right up there. And then of
Go
course
Fish, but then they said, "Do you have any liches?" Was the first part,
So it just completely flipped, and so I was like,
the
oh.
tone.
Yeah,
It just set the tone.
really
The sad
anything
thing
with that.
is I'm probably gonna like write mechanics for it now. Like that's the stupid thing.
Yeah, who needs 3 Dragon Ante when you can play Go Lich?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Really, any time that that the Baxley's talking, it's just like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen here?
Here we go. Yep.
So that's right up there with my favorite character, just watching everything. It's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next?
Right.
So it's anytime he gets injected in there. Reed,
Definitely.
as a player, what was your highlights for 1?
Mine. So there's one thing we didn't mention. So there was an episode 1 that didn't happen because, Jacob dumped a
Oh, right.
full cup of coffee up top before,
On
and we
stream?
literally had to completely. Yeah, well, it happened on stream, like 15 seconds in, and then like within 2 minutes, like everything shut down on his computer. His hot lava coffee basically shorted everything within. So there was so we tried to improv as best we could, hoping that he was going to come back, not realizing just how bad his spilled coffee. We knew he spilled coffee. We didn't realize he spilled coffee completely into his computer.
Completely blew it away. Yep.
Yeah. So we improv for 10 minutes and just did silly stuff for a bit. And then we said, okay, well, we just got word this isn't going to happen today. And so we spent some time basically riffing off of soundtrack music that we'd gotten a hold of in the background. And basically we'd play music and then just try to do something funny with it. And we did everything from fake advertisements to, movie openings. You'd have this great music playing, and then you're in a world gone mad, only 4 rogues stand before the greatest heist in the world. Let's hope they don't screw the pooch. I mean, it was just funny stuff like that. But you had this amazing theater music in the background, and everybody did fun stuff with it. And eventually Duval found a way to get on with his phone and did Jacob did the best he could with his phone, and it was a real challenge, but we still got through it. And that was a very fun moment as a cast that we didn't really get a chance to do. I don't know that we would have had a chance to do that if Jacob hadn't really screwed his laptop up twice over.
Worth it, right?
Yeah. And in game session 1, I think it was just the dialogue between the various different characters at the shopping trip.
Right.
Watching, where we're trying to figure out which end is up, and then watching everybody try to buy things and suggest things, and then seeing, I think it was Shannon's attempt to purchase the daggers, I think was hilarious, because she tried out 3 of them and says, "I'll take all 3." And it's whoa, who's paying for this? Well, we have unlimited money. No, we don't have unlimited money yet. That's after you get paid. That's where that comes from. She's like, "No, I want all 3. We'll take them now. We'll pay for them later." That's not how that works either. It was just this ongoing dialogue. And then the ogre that needed a breath mint, I think.
That was so much fun.
Yeah. Little Primatine Mist might take care of some of that for you, But that was the biggies. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anything? Any highlights from the second session there, gentlemen?
So I think the the flip side, I was so sad that they rolled so low on their investigation checks, because I was so looking forward to role playing the kids from the snowball fight again, but they couldn't find them. So the dice is spoken. Who knows? Maybe they'll run into them next time. But because of that, I thought that it felt like that was there was a few kind of classic-y heist moments, but Anna and Shannon scoping out the place was really fun to kind of reveal, and there were some really interesting things that I don't think they expected, and so so that was so it's all right, we're probably not just gonna walk in this thing, so maybe we'll see what happens, but that's of course without having talked to Mordivell like the other two, and obviously the ending is I think speaks for itself. I think that's we'll see how 3 goes, but that for me is the number 1 moment overall. And then
hope we can run,
man. We'll see. I will say it is fun to have an NPC just completely lose it. Just lose it. That's all I'll say about that. Go watch it.
It was a good time.
And the very calm conversation with Mordivell, in which he revealed a few things, I think that were a bit over the top and maybe surprising. I thought was really, really fun to play with, because for me, I think the thing that's really tough sometimes is to nail tension. Tension is really difficult. And this may sound like overreaching, but I think sadness is easy. I think happiness is easy. I think true tension, and then not in this case, but dread, I think is really, really hard. But that conversation had moments of really, really good tension. I don't know how you feel about it, Reed, but what it reminded me of I don't know if you've seen Inglorious Bastards. That's how like, and when they're all like in the at the table talking to each other.
Yeah.
That's how like that escalated in my mind, and so it was just a utter blast to have a battle of wits, if you will.
Yeah, as the player having to navigate that, and as a guy who's been in serious conversations in real life like that, it wasn't a real heavy stretch in some cases. But what I will say is you're trying not to blow your cover per se, and at the same time you're trying to get something out of them too. And this guy, he knows when people are trying to probe him, so you have to be very careful how you do that. But I think the thing I enjoyed most about that is you suddenly put us in a moral quandary with what we're going to do here, and it put a time limit on it too, so it added more time pressure than we were originally. I mean, we were already under a time pressure for two reasons. There's the artificiality of the fact that it's only a 3-stream show, so we got to get it done, right? But then there's also we are motivated to get it done so we can get out of town and be successful. But now we have this timeline where we have to pull it off before they realize we haven't done something else potentially, or we have to now put a time pressure to get something else done in order to fake something else. And so how did I had to figure out a way to turn this lemon into lemonade, and if he put a hard line in front of me, did I say no right away, or how did I work that? And I guess it worked out. I don't know yet. He still hasn't mentioned what the big mistake was that we failed at that was most entertaining for him. So for all I know, that's it. And but yeah,
could be. I will say, someone in the chat mentioned the soundtrack. I'm very happy that people dig it. Reed and I went down the rabbit hole to find good music. So I'm glad it was glad it worked.
That trip down that rabbit hole, by the way, for the music for that, as it actually opened up some stuff on the heist for the 3-shot, but that experimentation is now going to richly reward the other shows that we're on. I think you'll see some more interesting back soundtracks for some things as well as time permits. And also we're working on some very funny shorts to go in between on some of the breaks as well. So check those out when you can.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, and you're by the way, Jacob, you're invited to help us with some of those too. Like dude, you're in. You're totally in.
Yeah, totally. I will. I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
While we have you in a happy to do things kind of mood, are there any hints about what we can look forward to in the next session? We can tell Reed to take his earphones out and leave the room.
You want me to take them out?
Nah, it's fine.
I'll just switch to
speaker. I can talk around. Yeah. So the this beautiful, amazing party of sneak thieves now knows when, because that was one of the big questions: is when are we getting in here? That's happening, and they're kind of a two-pronged approach. But what does Mordivel have in store for them? What actually is the item? This horn that apparently is some sort of demon lord thing. What does it do? Because their person that hired them and offered them all these riches, refused to tell them. Very much you're getting paid this X, and so you don't need to know that. That is information you don't need to know. And then, they also know that Mordivel isn't just a well-respected, super charismatic dude. He's also the leader of this pretty crazy, cultish type organization. What is that about? How will that come into play? And one thing that I thought was really fun and really interesting is that they were, I think, expecting to see is to get some information about who resides in this manor. What do the servants look like? We can pretend to be them. They didn't get that information because, as Reed said after the game, oh, this place is a fortress. So,
well, good luck.
Yeah, we noticed after checking it out, there wasn't a single window facing the outside anywhere in this place. That's a scary thought when you think about it.
I'm sure you figure it out.
Yeah, 3-story building, noble's estate, no windows. Nothing good can come of that.
Yep. All they know is the front door and the balcony.
We're going into a charnel house and we're screwed.
Oh, I can't wait! I'm so excited.
Roll new characters.
So excited.
Well, so we're coming up on time, but we still have a couple minutes here to ask you a
Sure.
couple more things. Now you're on a couple other stream projects on Twitch. What is it? Duval and Dragons and Thread Raiders, right?
Yes, that's.
Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, of course. So yes, on Sunday, every other Sunday. So actually, this coming Sunday here on Twitch.tv/SoMattyGames, I'm the host and dungeon master for a 5e campaign called Duval and Dragons. It is loosely based on my favorite video game of all time, Chrono Trigger, and so
Okay.
it's a bit of a low fantasy with a little bit of what they are realizing is some time travel, which if anyone's tried to do D&D and time travel, you know how difficult that is. So you know,
Yeah.
jump in the deep end as far as what is kind of how I do things. So
Nothing
that's
simple
been-
for you, sir.
Nope, never. Simple is boring. Don't do boring.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's been good. That's about I think session 5 of that. Shortly after this, at 9:30 Eastern time, I will be on Twitch.tv/Thread Raiders. I'll be playing in this game. This is a homebrew world, also in 5e. For the stream is called Geek Attack. I think that's a really fun game. It's been weird because like outside of one shots, I haven't been a player in a really long time, so it's actually just like it's this opposite effect of like, oh man, I forgot. Like I can't do everything. So that's been really fun to jump back in from that perspective. And then there are a couple of other things that aren't out just yet, but stay tuned to the internet.
Excellent.
Ooh.
So you've mentioned you have a lot of those. Are you doing any games that aren't on streams or cameras right now? Just sort of fun projects with you and your friends?
Yes. So I'm actually running 2 Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaigns.
Nice.
I'm a big fan of that module. There are pretty much wrapped up. It's really strange to run because one started about 6 months before the other. I run one at work and one with a bunch of friends, and it's been really weird to see all the differences that have happened. But I also started that, so I learned a lot about like what to do and what not to do, and so that's been really fun to kind of. It's been a good kind of like touch point of like this is kind of where you started and this is where you are now as like a DM. So that's been really good. And then my Tadori campaign has been on hiatus for a couple months, so hopefully getting back into the swing of that soon. Because a lot of those folks, a lot of the players there weren't really super excited about online gaming or through Zoom and stuff. They really missed the collaborative, and because there's no doubt that being all around the table is a lot better, but it's just not realistic right now. But they weren't really on board with the things that they missed, which is totally understood. And so we went on hiatus for that. So hopefully we'll get that back up really soon. So, but that's probably, you can see why I haven't had much time for video games lately. So
Fair enough. Well, before we go, are there any other projects or anything you want us to plug, or how our viewers can find you?
Yeah, just find me on Twitter and Instagram, Duval King Java, right under there. I'm always yelling about something, likely football related, or video games, or Dungeons and Dragons, or all this other crazy stuff. So
I just want to say, chat's yelling Duval right now.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Chat, I love you. You're amazing.
Yeah, some great people. Great
Oh
people.
my God, you guys are the best. And it's funny. So like one thing I will say, actually to give Chet a shout out, is Chet's actually the reason why I changed we're talking about homebrew a little earlier.
Sure.
I changed my critical rule, which has been, it's all different for everybody, right? Double the dice or double the damage. He does it where it's an automatic max on the dice and roll it again, add your modifier, which is like awesome. I'm a huge fan of that, especially with a certain someone that has 1,000,000 D6 sneak attack damage.
Yeah, I could see that being really, because we were actually getting into a conversation about this earlier today, I think. or
Yeah.
yesterday, or sometime in the recent past. And yeah, there's so many different things you can do with criticals.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody seems to have their own kind of preferred way to go at that.
Yeah, I remember because I can tell you exactly what happened. I was fighting the final boss in this one shot, and he told me about this rule, and I was just like, "What?" And I was playing this Dragonborn Paladin, and so like Divine Smite, and so just
Throw extra dice in there.
I think it was like it was an insane amount of damage, better than rolling all ones. Very true. And so it just was like that moment, and like it took me 2 seconds. I was like, I literally messaged all my groups, and I was like, effective immediately, like a freaking press release. This is the rule now.
Excellent. All right. Well, Reed, do you have anything else? Because I think we're practically approaching bedtime.
Let me see. So quick, I'm starting on Monday on the Discord server. We had a new group that we're starting on Monday, Dungeons and Dragons group that I'm dungeon mastering for off stream. So that's kind of fun. Just
Nice.
some of the folks on the Discord have come together and they're looking for a game. And I said, you know what, I'll do that on Mondays. It's a little Storm King's Thunder action. It'll be exciting. So for that lucky group, we're going to be doing some fun stuff on stream. And then our off stream, and then let's see here. I know that the Velkin Weave is taking a 2-week hiatus for a reset on some things that they're working on to update their stream even further, and so we're excited to see what's going to come out with that, and we'll have some special announcements about that coming up later.
It should be fun. I'm looking forward to the changes.
Yeah,
It'll be a good time.
And then Whiskey, Magic, and Destruction this Thursday in the Thunderdark. We're going to see what happens with the party as they continue on. I think we last left them off sailing on a massive lake in a cavern in a folding boat. So,
yeah, as you do.
yeah, as Adgrin steering the ship and putting his own name on the sail and other Adgrin-like stuff.
I mean, it's his boat, so it's fair.
Yeah, it's his boat, right. And then I think, was it this weekend? Is this weekend D&D?
No, that's next week, the 18th.
Next weekend, yeah. So, and then I'll be serving my country this weekend. So I have some military training coming up as a reservist. So it should be exciting to do that too. Yeah. That's it for me. What else am I thinking of?
With the Velkin Weave off, we're going to be running a Dungeon Crawl Classic tomorrow, and you've so kindly volunteered to be pushed through that meat grinder. So have fun.
Yeah, I'll be on tomorrow, getting grinded. Again,
it'll be
which
a fun
I get ground like a true piece of purebred beef on that. It's just I'm ground.
Yeah,
ground
Jacob,
chuck.
are you familiar with Dungeon Crawl Classics at all, or?
What's that?
Jacob, are you familiar with Dungeon Crawl Classics, DCC?
I think I've seen it. Is
Okay.
it like just updated kind of variations of things? Actually, you know what? Why don't you just tell me about it?
Good tee up.
What are you doing Wednesday? What are you doing Wednesday, buddy?
Hey, if you want in, we can kill 4 of your characters.
Oh no, I like them all.
You won't get to keep them all, buddy.
No.
Trust me. That's not how this works.
What is it? Is it like you roll up a bunch and then you see how many you make it out
Yeah.
of?
You get 4. You're lucky if you come out with 1.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
boy.
DCC
Oh, boy.
is
it
it's another like old school revival clone, or not really a clone, sort of an homage to like the 70s kind of stuff.
Okay.
Where dwarf and elf and halfling are classes, like you.
Yeah.
It's that kind of era,
I
and
do remember
everybody is
about
super
this.
deadly, or I'm sorry, worthless and dies horribly. But they also
Unless you make it.
yeah,
But in cinematic, really good ways. Otherwise, it's Final Destination.
yeah. It's
There was a Yeti. There was a Yeti. There was dinosaurs. It's just this is horrible. It's traumatic.
It's traumatic.
Yeah.
All of the survivors are on padded walls in padded rooms.
much, yeah.
So the best part about it is some of the people come with like animals because you're like a farmer or something. I think we cut loose a goat as a diversion
and it
to
didn't
keep
go well
the
for
Yeti
goat.
busy. It didn't go well for the goat.
Yeah, so everybody starts as a handful of level 0 characters. So you have usually like 1d4 worth of hit points. I've had party members, do a crit fail and trying to knock on a door, they get a splinter, and
they're dead.
Die. It's like so it's bad. It's
Those infections are terrible.
yeah.
Let me tell you.
So it's like organ control. Everyone dies of dysentery.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. Or you fell down the stairs and twisted your neck, or you had an aneurysm for failing the insight check. It's like it's a very, very deadly game, but
That's awesome.
it's a fun
Yeah.
time. It's a good time for bed.
Was it the
like
one
that.
character walked in a door and a giant foot stomped him flat?
Something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like just the random, that.
No, there was a giant creature on the other side of that foot, but
Oh.
like that's how we found out it was
Yeah,
there. The
there
hard
was a
way.
Yeti behind the door. Yeah,
I
it's
don't
like-
see anything. Oh, that
Oh,
was
I'm dead.
bad. That happened.
Oh man,
Ooh.
here's my next character that was in the bar the whole time. Probably not this Wednesday, but I think that is 100% right up my alley.
Cool. We'll keep
for
you in the
sure.
loop.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
sounds good.
All right, well, gentlemen, before we break for the evening, we're rapidly approaching bedtime. Any last words for our viewers? Besides, thank you everybody for we got 2 raids today.
Of course.
Yeah,
Two raids from Campfire Quest and Angry Nerd Girl. We'll be saying thank you guys even more later on, and don't forget to follow us. And if you watch our live streams and you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah. And
I
again,
will-
tonight,
I will say-
Jacob, you have your thing at 9:30, right, for Thread Raiders?
I do. Yep. I will be like the Zoom call is already open.
All right. Well, we don't want to hold you too much longer.
No, it's no problem.
Yeah,
I already told them that to wait a minute, so it's all good. I will say, first of all, this was so much fun. Thanks for interviewing me. It was a freaking blast. And
Welcome
aboleths are people too.
Aboleths are not people. Aboleths are not.
Before this gets uglier, I'm going to go ahead and just cut the stream here, guys. Jacob, so much for joining in.
Right now. So much for niceness. You're done now.
All right, everybody have a great night. Reed, Jacob, thank you so much for joining us. And
got it.
Raiders,
Good
again,
night.
have a good night. Good night, everybody.
Take care.
Wait, wrong one. There we go. We don't even know how to